good morning, and welcome to a very special Fibertown interview. At Maryland Sheep and Wool about a month ago, I had the opportunity to sit down with Amy from Ross Farm, and we chatted for about a half hour. And I hope that you guys enjoy our little conversation. It's much more conversational than interview style, but she talks about the history of her farm, her family, her sheep, all sorts of interesting tidbits about how Ross Farm operates and their philosophy. Now, just a word about the setting. We were at Maryland Sheep and Wool in Amy and Scooter Pie's RV. So you were going to have a lot of ambient noise. It's not far from the highway, so you do hear cars going by. That said, I think the sound quality is good enough. You can hear us talking and hear what we say, I hope. And that shouldn't be too much of a bother. There's no way for me to filter it out. So it is what it is. And there are a couple of blips in the sound midway through the interview. But I think there's lots of good stuff in there, and if you guys are at all interested in how a small, independent wool business runs, I think you're going to enjoy it. So Amy and Scooter Pie have, I think she said 12 heritage and rare breeds, and also their son Drew, who is a farm manager, and they're super interesting. So, and I could sit down and talk to her for hours. She's full of interesting information and stories, and she's fun to listen to. So, with that said, I hope you all enjoy. Ross Farm. Tell me about Ross Farm. Because I can edit this,
Okay, so the farm has been in my family for 120 years.
Oh, wow.
My family has made it basically 2 miles in 200 years. My second cousin is on the 1830 farm.
Wow.
A mile away from me.
So the younger farm.
Yeah, ours is the new farm. 1894. 1890s, yes.
Oh, of course. Can't do math on this.
But when they purchased it in 1894, it was already established. It was an older farm that somebody else had had. Uh-huh. And my great-grandfather had a dream to make it, the ideal modern farm. Okay, 1910.
Wow.
The ideal modern farm.
So how did he change it?
Well, he basically tore down everything that was there and built all new, state-of-the-art 1910 buildings. Okay, so I have a big American four-square, big brick house, and then there's big bank barns. The old barn is 1910.
Okay.
And then behind it is the new barn, which is 1933. So yeah, I've grown up calling it the new barn.
Did you grow up on this farm or?
No, actually, my great-grandfather started the farm, and then when he passed, he left it to my great-uncle, who was my grandfather's brother.
Okay.
And he never married and had no children, but he had helped to raise my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So when he passed in the 90s, he left it to my mother, and then I took over sheep operations because my mother was still teaching at WVU at the time. And that's when I started to change things.
Yeah.
Because it had always been just commercial meat sheep.
Okay. So the 90s, late 90s or so?
93,
okay.
I got rid of all of they were basically Dorset, Hampshire, Suffolk crosses. And the way that they did things in the community at the time was somebody had a ram, and when they were done using it, they passed it to the next guy, and then they passed it to the next guy, and they passed it to the next guy. And
so
then
no genetic diversity?
No. And
wow.
When he got done, then he went to the auction. Like the last guy to have whatever the ram was this year, whether it was Suffolk, Hampshire, Dorset, whatever, just sold it at the auction because it didn't bring anything anyways because it was a ram. They weren't particularly young rams. We don't know where they came from.
Not tasty creatures, basically.
Well, they were mutton.
Yeah.
Because they were, over the cut off the limb, which I've never tasted.
Mutton?
I've never tasted lamb or mutton.
Okay.
When I spend so much time keeping them alive, it's a little bit too much like Cocker Spaniel to me to really think of it as a food product.
Absolutely understand. Yeah.
I spend way too much time with my flock to eat them. I know that makes me a bad farmer. I know farmers are supposed to eat what they raise.
Doesn't make you a bad fiber farmer.
No, that's why I wanted to go into wool sheep, because then I don't have to sell them to eat.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get really attached to the lambs, and that makes me a bad farmer.
Does everyone have a name? All the animals have a name?
Not really. We kind of, the way we explain it is, it's almost like a small town. Like 70% of them, you know them to see them, but you don't have a whole lot of interaction daily. Mm-hmm. They run past you to go get their feed, and they run right back out the door. They have no interest in being your friend. They have their own friends. They do their own thing. Yeah. The other 30% are like, hey, you brought the feed again.
Hey, you're so great.
You want to scratch my ears? Because I've got this itch. And then we have a couple that are just very, very special to us. Like, I know you've heard about 219.
Shayla?
Well, Shayla's my husband's very special one.
Who's 219?
219 she was one of my Cheviot ewes. She lived with us for almost 8 years. She passed away at almost 10 this spring. And every day when I go to the barn, like Cheviots are not generally friendly, loving sheep. Yeah. But 219's like, hey, you're back, and you brought that feed, and, you know, I'm your buddy. And she was a really, really special Cheviot to me, because when somebody would lamb, she was sure it was hers, and it needed her to take care of it, and if she didn't intervene, it was going to die. And
even if she already had a lamb?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And especially if she didn't.
Yes.
And year before last, we had a first-time Romney mother that had twin lambs in the barn, and 219 was there, and she's like, no, totally, those are mine. I had these. I'm going to take care of them. You go on about your business. These are my lambs.
Did she spontaneously lactate?
Well, they're all due about the same time, so
gotcha.
They've got jugs.
They've got jugs.
Yeah. So I'm like, 219, those are not yours. They weren't in good shape. They had a very difficult birth.
Yeah.
So we needed to take them into the house to warm them up and get them started so we could get them plugged in on their mother and nursed. So she's just sure that they're hers, and she's having a fit because we're taking these. They're black, okay? Cheviots are white.
Yeah.
They're not hers.
She's just got
for obvious reasons.
Strong mothering.
But she's going to mother them. So we take them to the farmhouse. We get them all fixed up. We come back like 10 minutes later. She's had her own set of twins. She's got them up, cleaned, and nursing, and is like, literally.
Screw you, I'll have my own babies.
She's like, you know,
look at what I could have done.
These are mine.
This is how you do it.
These are mine, and you're not taking them away from me. So we just put her in her pen, and she was very, very happy to have her own children and raise them herself.
Oh.
But then we did, and of course the Romney mother was very excited to see her too, and they were happy and got raised too.
Oh my gosh.
But, you know, anytime anybody would walk away from one, she's like, mine. She was awesome.
Hilarious. I'm so sorry. She's going on. She sounds like she had an amazing.
Yeah.
Is that 10 years a typical span for
anytime after 9, I've had them live as long as 17.
Wow.
But 9 is usually the common.
And I bet 17 is
age.
not a good quality of life for a sheep.
17 is really hard to keep weight on them. A lot of arthritis.
Yeah.
And the only reason he lived to be 17 is because he was a wether, so he had never had, he had never had lambs. He had never done anything but graze and poo.
No demands on his life.
Right. So there was nothing stressful or traumatic that had ever happened to cause him to, have any sort of medical issues.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
how many animals do you have right now? I know you have expanding breeds, and they're all rare breeds.
They're all rare in heritage.
Rare in heritage. So
like Cheviots, everybody says, oh, Cheviots are not rare in heritage. What are you doing with Cheviots? Well, Cheviots are actually now on the Royal Watch list in the UK.
Okay.
Cheviots are becoming more endangered. They're in good shape here in America, but they're becoming more endangered in other parts of the world, which in my mind could lead them to become endangered here as well. And we have a lot of discussion about how show sheep have really changed the way sheep breeds look today. Because in the show ring, you want big and tall and long, and you want as much meat as possible on the animal. So they're showing sheep is causing squat, round fiber critters to grow to be ponies.
Right.
Okay.
I saw some of those giant sheep this morning. Huge. They're like ponies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good for their purpose, but not for mine.
No.
Because there's always a trade-off. So if you get a big, long, heavily muscled animal, the wool quality may not be there. They may not be awesome mothers. They may not be reproductively sound. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like modern turkeys.
They can't mate.
They can't mate because they've been tinkered with
for the breast meat.
Right, for their own purposes.
They're barely standing upright, right?
Right, so that's what we're concerned about,
Yeah.
and why we raise the Heritage and Rare Breeds is because there may be a time when sheep have morphed into what is necessary for them to compete on a commercial level.
Right.
So they no longer are a viable alternative for what we're trying to do, which is, the wool operation.
Yeah.
So
it's a great operation. Which breeds do you have? Shetland, Jacob?
Shetland, Tunis, Jacob, Corriedale, which was a rescue. I don't generally think of Corriedales.
Yeah.
Cotswold, Tunis, Romney, Leicester Longwool, Lincoln Longwool, Hog Island, California Red, and the one that I always
forget.
Do you have
Churro?
No.
Okay.
Did I say Cheviot? Because I have Cheviots.
I don't think
the
you
12th
did.
one.
So 12 at this point.
12 breeds.
Amazing.
Yes, because it's gotten to the point now, since we do these shows, people know what we do, and periodically we'll have somebody run into our breed going, "You've got to help us. We know of X that's going to go to the market, to the butcher, if nobody gets them by Thursday."
Yeah.
And it's like,
add another mouth to feed.
get the trailer ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's amazing.
that's what's happened in the past week. We did Powhatan last weekend.
Okay.
And we had a woman run into our booth and say she had spoken with a friend of ours who's a Leicester breeder, and they knew that we have Heritage and Rare Breeds, and gave her our name and number, and that we were going to be Powhatan, and for her to come and see if we would be able to take on a 2-year-old breeding pair of Mount Vernon Hog Islands.
Oh, that's really cool. Those are little sheep, right? They're fairly small.
They're a medium size.
They're medium size.
Like
okay.
Shetlands are little.
Yeah.
But Hog Islands are probably in the 125 to 150 range, which is sort of average for us. Our Cotswolds, I swear to you, one of my ewes is almost 300 pounds. She's old style. I mean, she's not. We call them supermodels. We got some long-legged Romneys show sheep from a little 4-H girl who wanted to get out of Romneys and get into Highland cattle. So we had met her. So we call them the supermodels because their legs are like 4 miles long, and they're show sheep.
Yeah.
And they look nothing like our old school fiber Romneys.
Interesting.
But
so there's different types of Romneys out there.
Yeah, there's show sheep and there's not show sheep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever have you ever looked into Gotland? What do you think?
I have looked at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Basically,
I'm kind of
a lot of the UK
obsessed.
breeds come from Leicester Longwools, or the Bakewell, Dishley, English Leicester, whatever they decide to call them.
Right.
And they are Leicester Longwools crossed with whatever.
Okay.
Like Blueface Leicester is Scotch Blackface and Leicester Longwool.
Okay.
Border Leicester is Border Cheviot and Leicester Longwool. And then of course Leicester Longwool.
Yeah.
But you can read that in Play Magazine.
I think I did.
Yes. So I've looked at the Gotlands, but I've not really dove into them as much.
I'm kind of obsessed with the gray and the long wool they're beautiful. And you mentioned a 4-H'er. I met a 17-year-old 4-H'er who sold like 7 of the fleeces for premium at the sale up there. Like they were $150 each.
I get that for my Romneys.
Yeah, wow.
Because my old school Romneys will grow a 10-inch clip.
I helped a friend buy a beautiful Romney. It was probably 6 inches.
Well,
Really
my
pretty.
big, beautiful long.
10 inches?
Yeah.
Wow.
I generally don't sell my fleeces because they end up in yarn.
Yes.
But I make special cases, and it ended up with Laura Lynham.
Amazing.
And there's a picture on Instagram, if you look back through, of me spreading it out on the floor at SSK so that Laura could see it. And Laura Nelkin is standing next to me when they were taking the picture, and she's going, because it's like a 4x8 sheet of wool. Because my old school Romneys are fat and wide and grow.
I still want a Shetland when you clip them.
Shayla, if they don't rue themselves before we get the shearer there, Shayla has your name on it. But I love, gray is my thing.
I love it too.
Gray is my thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I showed you a picture of the new Shetland Ram that's coming from Indiana.
No.
But he is the Keller of steel wool.
Nice.
I mean, he is like stainless steel.
Nice.
And he has a very, very long staple for a Shetland.
Wow.
I have pictures of him that they took for me before he was shorn this year. And all of our Shetlands are the new single-coated, medium defined Shetlands. They're not the more primitive style.
Do you get the Shetlands? The Shetlands, mostly carding, wool for carding.
Well, none of the places that we use have a combing machine.
Yeah.
And I'm too afraid to send our wool to other places because that's our livelihood.
Exactly.
And
do you use mostly local mills or?
I only use 2 mills.
Okay.
One is in Maryland. My husband sells his sweater lot.
Excellent.
A Big Wayner, which is named for Heather's husband, because he's this massive Romney Lester Cross weather.
Excellent.
And Heather's husband is this massive barbecue judge.
So they kind of go together.
Yeah,
A barbecue judge.
He's a certified barbecue judge. And that's the joke, is he wears a 3XL, which is what they call a barbecue medium.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're going to SSK. What other you do a lot of shows. Tell us what
We're doing 18 this year.
Wow.
'Cause
Where
I'm
else
psychotic.
are you going to be?
We cut back.
Oh my
We cut back from 15 to 18.
Yeah.
Because we cut back from 15 to 12,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had these awesome little opportunities pop up, like History Unwound and Homespun Yarn Party.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize.
And
Oh, that's right. You did.
we
come
did
back.
we did Homespun Yarn Party. I hope they'll invite us back because that was fabulous. I wish there were more space because cramming everything into 6 feet
It's crowded.
was
I know
no
the
walking
organizers.
room. No walking room. And my son announced around Valentine's Day that he and his best friend Jordan, since he was 6 years old, are going to just go out and do a couple of shows this year too. Like when
Sweet.
we're off at a show doing something and there's another show the same day, they'll just go and do that one.
So your son is fully invested in the business, right?
Yes, he turned 20 yesterday,
Yeah.
which I'm not okay
Oh, I'm sorry.
with. Not okay
I'm
with.
sorry.
I can't be 28 if my son is 20.
That's hard.
You know what I'm
You could
saying?
be 33-ish.
I could be,
child,
but I'm still 43.
I am currently the answer to the question, the meaning of life, in the 42.
It's a good year. It was a great year because he was only 17 and 18 then.
Yeah.
So I still had a child and I was young.
Yeah.
But now when they're actually like 19, I was like, yeah, he's still a teenager. Yeah, he's still a kid.
20s, yeah.
20, I'm like, okay, he's really an adult now, and I'm just silly. So
Mama.
He's
You're
20.
like 219 or whoever that sheep was.
Yes, 219. Dear old 219. But that answered your question. A
Yeah.
lot of them have names, but some of their names are numbers.
Yeah, that's all good. So he is really taking over.
Yes,
good
when
part
we're
of
on the road,
business.
he is the farm manager. He births the babies. He has saved some from horrific. He's actually learned to do, like, sometimes if they're born and they get too cold, or if they have a very difficult delivery, you have to actually put a feeding tube,
Yeah.
and get their mother's milk into their bellies because they've lost the ability to suck. And he's actually done that by himself now.
That's
He's
really great.
delivered lambs by himself now, which before he was like, I don't want to know anything that goes on back there. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know what happened. I'll give them hay and grain once they get into the pen, and we'll be good with that. But my husband's
More
proud
sales.
of himself. Yes, he's very proud of himself. But Drew has been doing our hay now for the past couple of years, and he's made the decision to not go to college. He wants to just be a farmer, and that's always my big frustration, and that's always my pet peeve. And when I have a Facebook rant, that's what it's about. I left a position as the CEO of a local nonprofit 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And, people will say to me, well, you're just retired now.
I'm working my butt off.
Well, 3 years ago you left the litters and retired. And I'm like, no. I changed careers. Farming is a career.
Yeah.
This is a career choice.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we do it, and it's a career choice. And it's just like mind-boggling to people that somebody would actually want to be a farmer and do that full time
And not get a degree.
Well,
That also saddles you with debt.
right.
That's
And a lot
that's
of his
a problem.
friends-
That's a big problem.
A lot of his friends are, in their second year of college and on their fifth major.
Yes.
And a lot of his friends who are older have graduated from college and are working at Target.
And they have the debt.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really...
You can always figure out what you want to do and get a degree in it later.
I failed out of some of the finest establishments in the greater Pittsburgh area at the appropriate time for me to go to college.
Yeah.
And then I went back when I was 30 and knew what I wanted to do and got a bachelor's and a master's in about 2 years.
Yep.
I did 92 credits in 13 months and did my bachelor's, finished my bachelor's, because I was working full time and had my son. I was a single parent thing.
Yeah.
Scooter Pie is a new addition. He's only been around 10 years.
He's great.
He always says that he got Drew used. He adopted Drew when
That's
Drew was 13, but
Yeah.
he's a good guy. And I absolutely could not do what I do without him. But
Well, I really think you have a great operation, and I like your, you really have an aesthetic to your
the
setup.
theme is supposed to be a bountiful harvest.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where our bountiful harvest is wool.
Yes.
Other people might have, peppers and onions and tomatoes. We harvest our wool. And, that's another thing that I come up against. I have people that say, I would never knit with wool. What they do to the sheep is horrible.
There's been a lot of that lately, and I'm thinking, come and see an actual sheep being shorn by Emily Chambliss, or whatever her name
Chamberlain.
is.
Mhm.
Chamberlain.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And they're just hanging out. I mean, sheep baa all the time anyway.
And our sheep...
it looks like they're being tortured, but they're just doing their sheepy thing.
Our shearer takes like 15 minutes to do each one of them because she knows...
That's a long time.
Well, she knows that the wool is our product and we need it to be...
No second cuts.
Right, no second cuts. And then she also knows that I don't want my sheep all chopped up.
Right.
And she's extremely careful with them.
That's great.
I mean, we have fired shearers like on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
After too many nicks, I'm just like, you know what, you're done for the day. I don't know what's wrong with you,
Yeah.
but we can't have this. But Jess does a really good job for us, and I'm very, very grateful for her.
I mean, if you don't shear them, they're going to suffer. They're an animal that was domesticated
right, and
to produce
they
wool
have
this
to
way.
be shorn.
They have to be shorn.
They have to be shorn. Everybody thought it was really cute when they found the
the Huey, the big
Shrek or whatever,
the guy in
with,
Tasmania
that hadn't been shorn in 6 years. And
get-
my first thought was, who was in charge of him? Because you're a really lousy shepherd.
Yeah.
If you couldn't find him for 6 years, and he's had to live like this.
And he's had probably infections and parasites and just
And
can't see, can't
who knows?
breathe. You know,
Yeah,
who knows?
right.
Yeah.
And can't, make the other end happen properly.
Exactly.
So it just,
Poop everywhere.
yeah, it really upset me.
Yeah.
But the sheep, for their health and well-being, need to be shorn,
Absolutely.
because that's the only way I can tell for sure what their body score is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're a little thin and need to be, whether they may have a parasite issue. I need to get my hands on them and really check them out. And you can only really well visually inspect them when they're naked.
Well, before we go,
Okay.
thank you so much for sitting down with me. I just love to hear you talk about it. And as I said, I love you kind of have you can tell you have a mission and a mission statement and a look to what you're doing and a plan, and I just think it's really cool. So where are your next few shows going to be? Because I know you're at Rhinebeck.
Yes, we're at Rhinebeck.
Well, what are your next few months going to be like? So where people can see you.
Well,
And you're online too.
yes.
Okay.
But if there's something you're looking for, the best thing to do is email me.
Okay.
Because a lot of what you see in our booth never ends up on the Etsy shop because it's sold out before it ever gets there.
Okay.
Or if I've taken, I may only have 35 skeins of it because
Yeah.
that's, all the ones.
That's the clip from.
That's the clip from Fiona.
Mhm.
Or I may have 12 skeins because it's from Shayla. I have a very limited quantity of things, but if you're looking for, a super dark Shetland,
Mhm.
it may never end up on the website,
Okay.
but I may actually have some. Like I had that black Demetria,
I bought her.
and she was gone at Homespun Yarn Party.
Somebody bought a sweater quantity. That's amazing.
Well, I've had 4 calls of people wanting to buy 1 skein of Demetria, and I've said, you're gonna have to get her on the black market at this point, because
Destashed.
yeah.
So
if anybody ever wanted to destash her, I'd buy her back, because there are certain yarns that
Yeah.
I just fall in love with, and if he hadn't seen the box come back from the mill, it would be under my bed. There's a couple in the booth right now that, if
you're
it
like,
doesn't,
don't buy it, don't buy
yeah,
it,
I'm like,
don't
oh,
buy
that's
it.
hideous. Oh, that's hideous. Yeah. My pockets are stuffed.
Well, what are
full
you
of
knitting right now?
What am I knitting right now? I'm probably a really, really horrible person to ask, because
Yeah.
right now I'm not knitting my own stuff.
Yeah. Well, you have though. You made a color
yeah.
affection
I
that
made
I saw.
Shetland Affliction.
Shetland affliction with different colors.
Yeah, I made that to go to the Deb Robeson retreat in San Juan
Nice.
Islands last fall.
Oh, nice.
But I didn't get it done in time. I finished it around Christmas. They're much bigger than you think they are. Color
I've made
Affection.
I
just
made a
goes
Romney
on,
Jacob Finn color affection, and the last rose suck your soul out.
Well, I did mine in Shetland Sport Weight, so it's massive. But right now, I just got my little skein in the big wool Laura Ingalls Wilder kit, because when I was a little girl, I was Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Okay.
Until I was 13 years old, I had 2 braids down my back. And everybody said, "Oh, you look like
half pint.
Yeah. My first grade teacher called me half pint. It was cute until until it wasn't anymore. But I'm getting ready to cast that on. I'm knitting some socks out of Desert Vista Dye Works.
Okay.
Sport weight. Everything's right here in the back.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Well, this is my hand spun.
Your hands smell.
Yeah, all of my rovings I spin up just to see how it spins, and so that I can say, here's a poorly spun example of what you can expect. Well, I'm a very beginning knitter. Okay, my friends say that I shouldn't say that because, I'm knitting beaded lace by Laura Nelkin, and
You're an adventurous knitter.
I've only been
Point
knitting
blank.
a
You don't
short
have to-
time.
Okay, yeah.
But if I don't know it's hard, I just do it.
That's how I started too.
Yeah, and if
I
I
did
don't know,
cables for my first project that wasn't a
I
swatch.
did the Marshallin shawl for my first real project.
Okay, 'cause
It's It basically is like cabled calla lilies. You'll have to look it up. It's gorgeous.
Okay, I will.
It's by Ilga Leja, Leja. And it was just a pattern that I picked up when my LYS was going out of business. And I had a skein of Geraldine and Friends, which was my first dark luster U. I knitted it just, I'll show it to you. I knitted it just as a memorial to her because she had passed. And Geraldine and Mr. Jefferson were really the reason that I'm on the path that I'm on.
As in Thomas.
Mr. Jefferson was my Lester Longwood ram
Gotcha.
that we got from Colonial Williamsburg in 2008.
Oh, yeah.
We got him to crossbreed with some fiber ewes that we had picked up, just to experiment with wool sheep. And once Mr. Jefferson came up the driveway, I kind of made a hard right into hardcore heritage wear breeds.
Thanks to Mr. Jefferson.
Yeah, he came in September, and by November I had a flock of Leicester Longwools, and I was starting to pick up other breeds, and we were headed in that direction.
So and then 3 years later you quit your job and
Yeah.
Ross Farm full time.
Yeah.
Right.
I lost both my parents in 2011, and
Yeah,
14 weeks apart, and turned 40 the end of the year. And it was one of those times when you just kind of say, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. This has been my dream all my life. And he's down for it, so...
So amazing. It's inspiring, and I'm glad you did it.
He's actually an amazing artist.
Was he Scooter Pie?
Scooter Pie is an art photographer.
Okay.
He does mainly landscapes and historic landmarks. And I was a fan of his work before I was a fan of him. And that's saying something because...
That's amazing. Okay. Where can we see his work?
Well, he's on the website. He has his own website as well. He has a Facebook page too. He hasn't done so much since we started the business, but every now and then he'll slide a couple of shots into ply or spin off or
Cool.
yeah. So I'll be in the Pittsburgh Business Times next week. But
Excellent.
he does weird stuff, but he's super amazing, and I couldn't do it without him. And
Well,
I'm just
I'm glad you both do it.
absolutely blessed to have him. But yeah, after we started the art company, I realized after our first show that I needed to do continuing education, we call it. And I needed to learn to spin and knit because people were like, what size needles would you use for that? And I'm like,
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's great. So, are you
Average.
Would you call yourself a knitter with a capital K? An addicted knitter? Do you have a big stash?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a knitter.
We're down the rabbit hole. We're far down the rabbit hole. We're almost to China. But all of my friends being indie dyers and fiber folk. I mean,
You get exposed to all the good stuff.
Yeah, and they're all enablers, which is not good at all.
They are. It's a terrible community for
But
that.
then after I learned to knit, then people started asking me questions about our fiber, and I'm like,
Gotta spin now.
So I asked one of my friends, I'm like, so what do you use to spin with? And they're like, Louette S10 is a good beginner wheel, and I'm like, hello eBay.
Louette S10, got yourself one, and
Yep,
away you
and
go.
I'm just like, and my mantra has always been,
It's very nice.
my mantra has always been, people have been doing this for thousands of years with a whole lot less education than I have.
And
It
it's
can't be
child
hard.
labor in some parts of the world, right?
It can't be hard.
Yeah, it's
Just suck it up, Buttercup.
Thank you for talking to me.
Sure.
Excellent. Yay.
Now make me look skinny.
Oh, magic of TV.